We cannot become who we want to be if we are too afraid to let go of who we are. Hi, I'm Fran, or Franny for friends. My Instagram is Fran Diaz Leon _. And this is the second episode of my new podcast, Decide Being, where we are going to explore self-discovery, personal growth, and overall taking control of your life. In this episode, I want to touch base with a couple of concepts that are basic in the self-exploratory world and that are key. And we probably will talk about them often in the following episodes. So let's start with the basics. There's two concepts I want to talk about today that are very related. One is Autopilot, and the second one is limiting beliefs. They will help us try to explain why do we do what we do and why we behave in some ways. And then question ourselves if that's actually helping us to grow or if it's actually holding us back. And that way we can decide to move with more intention, to move forward, right? So let's start with the first concept. The first concept is autopilot. And it's pretty much the way that our brain has of operating without conscious thought. That means without thinking. That way it uses habits and routines and things we have learned in the past to save or conserve energy. An example of this is, for example, when we go to work every day, we probably use the same route so we don't have to use extra energy in deciding every day which route I'm going to use. This system helps us by freeing mental resources to use in more complex tasks. For example, being creative or when we have to solve a problem. It's a very useful state of mind, but it can impact us negatively when we are using autopilot to make important decisions. Decisions that probably we are not even noticing that we're doing in automatic mode. This can be in numerous aspects of our lives, but for example, if someone comes and asks for help, sometimes I overcommit saying yes immediately without considering if I want to help, if I actually can help, or if I have time to do it. Or sometimes we make a mistake, for example, and we automatically tell ourselves, oh, I'm so dumb, I'm so stupid, I can't do anything right, blah, blah, blah. Very automatic, right? Do you know what I mean? According to Andrew Huberman, and I'm hoping I'm saying his name right, he's a known neuroscientist that, by the way, has an amazing podcast that I really recommend. He says that the brain is always seeking for efficiency. It doesn't like uncertainty or unpredictability. So it tries to automate as much as possible. So the real question I want to ask you is, do we want to keep living in quotes by default? Or would you like to do something different? It's important to know that our brain is wired for survival, not happiness. And I want to say that again because it's important. Our brain is wired for survival, not happiness. That means that our autopilot could go even against our happiness just to conserve energy or avoid danger, avoid the unknown. The brain thinks that if it avoids uncertainty, we'll avoid fear and stress because these things can trigger it. This can mean, for example, and any resemblance to real events is purely coincidental, to stay in a job that you don't like, you maybe hate, just because it's familiar. Sometimes your mental health is shattered. There's a toxic environment, but staying in a known comfort zone, it's better than going to the unknown. And we better call it the discomfort zone, right? Do you know what I mean? Have you ever been there, hating going to work every single day just to avoid change? Because I know I have. And we're talking about work now, but it could be an unhealthy relationship that we're talking about, or a one-sided friendship that I think I'm not able to leave. There's numerous examples. And imagine that this autopilot is like a big umbrella. And under this big umbrella, we have these habits we learned, patterns we developed, and actions that we do without thinking. Under this big umbrella, we also have the limiting beliefs, which is the second concept I want to talk about today. The limiting beliefs are subconscious ideas that we have about ourselves that we started creating when we were growing up, and those beliefs shape our behaviors. They act as a personal mental barrier, sometimes like a prison even, and we don't know it. Most of these beliefs are probably interpretations we made of the world we saw and that we took as ours. We took as our own truth. For example, someone can think, I'm not smart enough to start a business. Because maybe when they were younger, someone said that they were dumb, and they took that as their truth. And can be even more subtle than that. For instance, and this is a personal thing, I grew up in a family where we didn't share our feelings much. And we even avoided confrontation a lot. Sensitive topics were off limits. And I remember being in my room, struggling with my emotions when I was around 14 or 15. I don't even remember what happened, what triggered this. But I remember feeling like I couldn't breathe, trying to decide if I should talk to someone or not. But just the thought kept popping in my head, like, if I speak up, I will create a problem. I believed that sharing what was happening to me, my feelings, was creating a problem. Can you see the limiting belief there? And I stayed quiet. Given how we handle things at home, I actually thought it was better to keep my feelings to myself and not cause more problems to my parents. I think in Latin America, this actually happens a lot. And I actually started avoiding my feelings altogether, however I could. And there's a lot of ways to avoid your feelings, let me tell you. Years later, I went to a psychiatrist, and he told me, and he wasn't very sensitive at all, that I was like a pressure cooker and that I was about to explode. And even though he said that, it took me years to understand that speaking my truth or acknowledging my feelings was actually valid. It was okay. And I'm actually not blaming my family because they did what they could with the tools they had. But my interpretation of life wasn't helping my well-being. And as an adult, my interpretation of life today, it's my responsibility. These beliefs, they guide our actions and they keep us in the autopilot mode. So your limiting beliefs can sound, for example, like, I am not good enough, I don't deserve success, I don't deserve happiness. And there's even one that is very interesting, that is very popular, that is, valuable things are difficult and required a lot of effort. if things come easily, I don't deserve them. So we have to sweat to accomplish things. And there's a million more of them. Can you think of any? Can you think of any limiting beliefs that's actually shaping your behaviors? I would love to hear yours, because that can help me and others to discover theirs. So please drop a comment and share your thoughts if you can think of anything. And now let's talk a little bit about how to handle this, right? Because that's what we're here for, not to just complain about them, but to do a little bit of self-coaching to help ourselves, right? So now I will share 3 keys to start working on this. All right. First one, it's increase your self-awareness. And this means intentionally start noticing your thoughts and behaviors. And maybe you can pause and ask yourself, why am I doing this? Is this aligned with my values? Is this aligned with who I want to be? Or is this just something that I'm used to do? I sometimes write it down in my notes because these thoughts come in the most weird moments. So I go to my phone and I write that down, and then I schedule some journaling, write down my thoughts about it, or sometimes I just schedule time to think about it, to try to make the unconscious a little bit more conscious. And I would say pay special attention to those thoughts that start with I am, like I am stubborn, for example, or I am dumb, I am unlucky, etc. Number 2, start questioning these thoughts. Okay, so let's pick a thought so we can do this exercise together, because there's 4 questions that we want to ask for that limiting belief. Let's imagine that my limiting belief is I'm not good enough. So the first thing I want to ask myself is, where does this come from? For example, maybe my parents were super strict when I was growing up, or I was compared to my siblings and they got higher scores than me. Early childhood, society's impositions, negative feedback I received when I was younger, or even social media and comparison could be the roots of these limiting beliefs. So it would be helpful to try to determine if something specific happened that triggered this, or if it's a pattern that was developed over time. The second question I want to ask is there any evidence that this is not true? So that goes against my limiting belief. So in my case, if I'm thinking I'm not good enough, well, I can think of times where I was enough. For example, when I finished university, or when I learned a new skill, or when I helped a friend and they thought that I was helpful. It would be good to reflect on moments where you achieved something. It doesn't matter if it's big or small, but where you faced a challenge and you managed to grow, and there's actually evidence that you are good enough. And that can be with any limiting belief. Just look for the opposite. All right. Question number 3. I want to know, how does this affect me on my daily basis? So in this specific limiting belief that I am not good enough, maybe it can hold you back from pursuing opportunities or taking risks, or even expressing yourself as you are authentically. It could lead to procrastination. It could lead to perfectionism. It could lead to constantly feeling you need to prove yourself to the world. And all of this can affect your mental health, and not only that, your relationships, and overall your sense of well-being. And the last question of our second key is, how would my life change if I thought differently? Maybe I would take more risks. Maybe I would pursue more goals and I would be more confident about that. Maybe I would be less critical with myself because it's okay to make mistakes and it's okay to be flawed. That doesn't make me any less worthy or capable, but I actually have to make it conscious. Okay, so the second key, to sum up, 4 questions. Where does this limiting belief come from? Is there any evidence that supports the contrary of this belief? How it affects on my daily basis, and how would things be different if I thought differently? Okay, so after becoming more self-aware and starting talking with this limiting belief, with this shadow that I have, we will have the key number 3, which is replace this limiting belief with a more empowering one or a positive phrase. The brain will believe anything you say, and especially if it starts with I am. So since the brain believes everything, let's use that to our favor. As they say, fake it till you make it. And believe me, it doesn't really matter if you believe these things at the beginning. But I promise you, they will help because the brain will take them as truths at the end. So if there's no harm, why not try, right? So in our example, if I was saying I am not good enough, I can replace this, for example, with I can improve with practice, or I can say I am doing the best I can. So when we get that thought or that message in our brain that we are actually not responsible for, because we're not responsible for the thoughts that we get, I can say, stop, I don't believe that, and I can intentionally replace it with this phrase. And I encourage you to start small. I'm not saying like every limiting belief you have, uncover it and work on it. No, let's start with one. Let's start being more self-aware of your decisions and more aware of your automatic thoughts. Maybe we can pick one of those limiting beliefs and start doing the questions. And then if you are up for it, maybe before going to sleep or first thing in the morning or both, you can repeat that affirmation to yourself because it couldn't harm, right? I would really like to help you start creating the life you want. And these things that I shared today, they have helped me. And I really hope they helped you too. So let me know in the comments if it resonates with you, if you have any other way to address your limiting beliefs or any other way to uncover them, to find them. Whatever you can say, it's very important for me because it can help me grow and learn. And we can share it in another episode. All right, we are almost at the end of the episode. And as I promised you, I will do a tarot dynamic. I don't know how to say tarot in Spanish, tarot in English. I don't know. I will do a dynamic at the end of each episode related to oracle cards or tarot reading. In the last episode, we intentioned one card. Today, we will do a small reading, and I want you to think the following question. Which advice does the universe give me to start being more self-aware with my habits and thoughts and decisions so I can start working towards being more intentional with my growth? So what advice gives me the universe to be more self-aware? So I want you to think about the number 1, 2, or 3. I will shuffle these cards, which have beautiful motifs on the other side. There are all different. So I'm gonna show you now. All right, the ones who picked number 1. Just so you know, I picked number 2, just so everyone knows and I'm not cheating. All right, the first one, it says, daring. Find your voice and use it, nice and loud, even if it makes you feel uncomfortable. If you don't use it now, nothing will change. So, what they are saying is actually find your inner voice, find your intuition, separate your intuition from your ego, discover your intuition and use it as your voice. This is your truth. Trust your truth and dare to use your voice. All right, let's go with number 2, the one I picked. And it says, questions. What are you thinking is absolutely correct. It takes courage to trust yourself, especially when everything points in a different direction. It sounds like our key number 2, right? Questions. And it's actually saying, similar to the first oracle card, that we have to trust our instincts. We have to trust what our instinct is saying, even though it's different from what I've been doing my whole life. I have to trust that maybe my desires, maybe what my stomach is saying, I should trust that instead of what they taught me when I was growing up. So, dare to ask questions and use the key number 2. Maybe I will have to use my own advice. Number 3, discretion. Friendships are fantastic when there is equality in the relationship. Maybe it's time to undertake a quick audit of your friendships to ensure they are reciprocal. All right, this is talking very differently to the other 2 cards. This is saying, look around you. Look maybe to those relationships where there's an imbalance, and that's maybe where you can find your limiting beliefs. Maybe you are doing automatic things for people around you, or maybe even, like we are like a mirror with other people, with the people around us. We are learning from them and we're growing with others because we are social beings, right? So maybe what I see in others and what's limiting them is actually limiting me as well, and I'm not seeing that. So revise your friendships and your relationships. And all right, I hope this advice can help you guys to start working on your automatic state of mind in your limiting beliefs. And I want to thank you all to stay until the end for listening to me. I'm super grateful and I'm super happy to do this because this is something that I'm super excited about. It's a project that it really takes a lot of my time, but I'm really happy to do it. And yeah, please let me know what has helped you. Like, comment, share, yell, dance, do whatever you want. My name is Fran, and because we're friends now, I'm Fran Diaz. I'm Franny, Fran Diaz Leon _ on Instagram. And I really hope that this helps you as it has helped me. Much love for all, and see you next time.